Welcome to shop class. Hello guys, in all seriousness, welcome to shop class. This is week 1 of January, and I thought I would kind of share the week of a shop teacher during these odd times, these hybrid times. Currently, we are back in January 2021, and I'm teaching in what we call a hybrid model. So I teach one group of students on a Monday, and then the second group on a Tuesday, and then they have a midweek remote learning, and then Group A comes back on Thursday and Group B comes back on Friday. So as far as hands-on activities go, it's almost a repeat of the same day. Meanwhile, they also have, we'll call it text style, remote style learning, in which they will either use a textbook or other online resources. And we do what's called supplemental exercises. Maybe it's learning about systems, learning about the machinery, and that's the kind of work that they'll do at home. When done well, it's a pretty good system, because on machinery, in the auto shop, on the woodworking equipment, lines are low. There's a better chance for one-on-one help and instruction when done well. So let's talk about the classes I teach and what we accomplished this week. In my second year woodworking class, we are building this table. And usually the second year woodworking class would do more advanced projects, but with the shutdown that happened in early 2020 and then being broken into hybrid systems, most of these students have not got to learn how to build this table yet. And so, but what they are working through here is, we started out by building our table legs. We have to stagger with another class that's also being taught by a different instructor. And so with limited amount of clamps, his class is actually starting with the side pieces. My students are starting with the legs. And so that's a pretty simple process of rough cutting, about 1 inch long. These are 24 by 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, and then you can see that there is a taper on those legs. So we start out by rough cutting it. We joint one face of each board, and then these boards get glued and clamped together. Next week we'll come back and kind of square them up. So my second class is actually a Woods A class. Very first time ever building anything in woodworking. So students, it's their first time using the miter saw. For some of these students, it's the first time using lots of hand tools. And so it's a fun experience. Stress level can be a little high sometimes. Nervousness gets in there. I keep saying, keep your hands off the trigger. Keep your hands away from the blades. Trying to explain to them that the blades are fixed and we need to respect it with that 6-inch allowance. This is the project that they will build. Simple shaker peg shelf. And we usually start out with the top of this shelf, okay? And the top of it is a 27.5 inch long board, 6 inches wide, and it will end up being finished at 3/4 of an inch. Process is pretty simple, but once again, a lot of things are simple when you've done them hundreds of times. And so for the first time, using a miter saw or getting onto the jointer can be really intimidating. And so we try to really slow things down so that we don't skip steps. Because a lot of times as you do things enough times, you start to skip steps. Maybe through efficiency, Maybe your brain is thinking about the end. But we need to make sure we don't skip steps so that the students have good understanding. Another thing is we start to rush, that's when mistakes happen. And whether I have 18 students in a class or I have 30 students in a class, it doesn't matter if I have 5 students in a class. I think the smallest group I've ever had was 7. That was fun. And so we need to make sure that we're not missing out on steps. So that is what my 2 woodworking classes have worked on this week. So welcome to the PowerTech Auto side of my shop space. The 2 shops are actually separated by some offices and storage and an old classroom. So in this space, this is our small engine space. You can see some storage over there where a lot of people donate push mowers, and push mowers are the engine of choice for us. We've had some pressure washers and rototillers. We've had some snow blowers as well that have gotten donated. And so on this space, there's workbenches. Some have vices on them, and they all have they're separated into 2 locker spaces underneath for students' projects to be stored. So I have 2 classes that are going on here. The first one is an A class where the students, they've just been assigned their engines this past week. They've been assigned their safety glasses, and we've kind of done a small shop tour. Their task starting off was to drain oil, drain any old gasoline and get that stored. We have a tote where a local company will come by every couple of years and recover that. And so now their job is basically to take the engine apart. This does 2 things for them. The first thing is it helps them learn tool names and tool usage. There's a lot of, hey Mr. Youngblood, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? They a lot of times don't know which direction to turn the fasteners. A lot of times they don't know the proper tool, or it's amazing that if the socket doesn't fit snug, it won't turn the fastener. And so helping them learn that, and by the end of the trimester, a lot of them are pretty handy with tools. So they learn tool usage. The second thing is they learn engine parts and identification of those parts, and we really reinforce the what the part does. So that's my PowerTech A, and they're just taking the engines apart at this point. The other class I teach is a PowerTech B. And in a usual school year, they'd be building electric motors, Stirling engines, learn about magnetism, LED technologies, battery packs, that sort of thing. This year, it's been a little weird and timing's a little bit off, so they're actually in the process of building their engine back up that they took apart during trimester 1. And so with that, building the engine back up, they've already cleaned, they've already done any machining, cylinder honing, valve grinding, removal of gaskets, and now they are compressing piston rings and installing the pistons, torquing the rod cap back down to the crankshaft. Sometimes they're building gaskets, and then we'll have to put the valves back onto the grinder and do the valve to lifter clearances and those kind of things, just the assembly process. A real fun process, a real fun time. Once again, they're still learning tools and tool usage, and that is probably more important than them knowing how to build an engine at this stage of their life. And then the last class that I teach, which is the tail end of my day, is an auto class. And this is not I'm going to be a mechanic auto class. This is, I want to be a responsible auto owner. So we're learning auto ownership skills. We started out the trimester while we were doing remote learning. We started out with basic general shop safety, talking about ventilation, PPE, that kind of where things need to be stored, a lot of safety involved. Then we started talking about some of the major milestones of a vehicle, major systems of the vehicle, some of the major players in automotive history, some current trends that are happening. We studied that, and then we started going into how to purchase a vehicle. Now, I get those students coming into my shop 2 days a week. So at this point, the students are now learning how to operate a floor jack. We spent an entire class period just putting the floor jack in a proper place, lifting the vehicle, kind of lifting it off the suspension a little bit. All the students get to see where it's at. Then we move it to a different location and kind of examining why we would put the floor jack there, what jobs would that purpose, and what jobs would that allow us to do. Later in the week, we were able to then take that same lifting points and now put jack stands in. So jack stands whether we're doing a oil change, or jack stands whether we're doing a brake job, or maybe lifting up just the side of the vehicle to do a tire rotation. Once again, a lot of this is very slow. A lot of this is very planned out, because I don't want these students to miss out on a step. I don't want them to feel rushed. I want them to really be able to learn why they're doing it and how to do it. And so this is pretty much my week as a shop teacher in class. Now, mind you, there is a whole different end of work that we do through Google Classroom, assigning PDFs and worksheets and reading exercises, along with video lessons that I put out throughout the week, in which that can supplement that whole learning process. Teaching is a whirlwind right now. It is not what I experienced. It needs to be profitable, and I always tell my students that I want this experience to be profitable. I want you to get done with class and feel like you got paid. And maybe you got paid in knowledge or skills, but I want it to be profitable. It needs to be engaging. You're not going to learn if you can't engage yourself in the situation. So it needs to be engaging. And I've never considered myself a really great teacher, but I always figured that if I put tools in the hands and a project in front of the students, they're going to learn by themselves. And then they're going to want to learn more. I always tell my students also that by the time you leave high school, you may not know what you want to do, but you're definitely going to know what you don't want to do with your life. Maybe that's sitting underneath fluorescent lights or LED lights, or inside block walls. Maybe you want to be outside. So, I'm Joe with Shop Teacher. This is week 1 of January, and I hope you enjoyed. Bye now.